Closing time, open all the doors and let you out into the world. Come on, sing it with me. Closing time, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Welcome to the finish line, my last ever video sermon, I hope. Fall is always the season of new beginnings and the endings of other new beginnings. That's especially true for us at Wildwood this year. In case you haven't been paying attention to your church emails this summer, next week at this time, a good number of us plan to be gathering right here in this space in the church to worship together. We will be asking everyone to wear masks. Some things just won't be the same as they were before the pandemic. But we will be gathering, we will be sharing together, we will be singing and praying, we will be making uncomfortable amounts of eye contact, seeing each other face to face. Lord willing and the creek don't rise, our church doors will again be open for worship. So today, I thought it would be a good time to consider why we bother coming to church. And I say bother because actually going to church in person takes a significant amount of effort. Remember those days? Getting kind of dressed up, applying at least a basic level of grooming and personal hygiene, leaving the house, wrangling children, making small talk, avoiding the pastor who's been trying to get you to volunteer for something, drinking church coffee, all of that good stuff. Being part of a church takes effort, patience, even courage. And I haven't even mentioned the hundreds of other wonderful things you could be doing on a Sunday morning. You've hopefully heard me say by now that God is everywhere and everything is spiritual, often enough to know that I see great value in these many other things outside the church. We can and do encounter God all the time beyond this place. And yet, I also resonate with that call from Hebrews 10. Do not give up meeting together in the New International Version. Don't stay away from the meetings of the community, as some do in the Inclusive Bible Translation. I love that passive aggression. You know who you are. Why is church attendance that important? A call strong enough to echo through 2,000 years of church history. I've heard lots of reasons from people over the years. For some, it's a sense of tradition and duty. Going to church is what Christians are supposed to do on a Sunday. I mean, the Bible says it, and your mother would be sorely disappointed with you if you didn't. For some, it's about keeping a sense of rhythm, the grounding and centering of starting a new week with worship. For some, it's about rest and renewal, a space to spiritually recharge amid the complications and hard work of life. For some, it's about community, sense of familial connections and belonging, good conversations and staying in touch with friends. Or maybe it's about a particular aspect of the Sunday morning experience for you, the singing, the sharing times, Sunday school, children's stories, rituals of communion and offering and prayers, or potlucks. Remember potlucks? Those are all good reasons to come to church. And I do say that we put a lot of time and effort into making this a space where all of those various elements come together to thrive for as many of you as possible. And at the same time, I wonder, is there something deeper underneath all of that? Not separate from those traditions and habits and practices, but a deeper value and purpose that holds those pieces together and makes this a meaningful and, yes, sacred space for all of us. What is unique about church that we don't find anywhere else? If you had to narrow it down to one thing, one word, what would you say? For me, to validate my pastoral credentials, I will make it a Greek word. Agape, love. I'm sure some of you have heard other sermons about the different words that the Greeks used for love. There is storge love, the love of things. I love my new phone. I love pizza in a storge sort of way. There is philia, the appreciation of something or someone, finding value and quality in the relationship. It's the love of friendship, mutuality. There is eros, the love of attraction, infatuation, desire, lust. And then there is agape. This summer I've been listening to the podcast Another Name for Everything with Richard Rohr, Bree Stoner, and Paul Swanson. And I'll let Richard describe his understanding of agape love.
Then the one that Paul chose to use in 1 Corinthians 13 is agape, or agape. It's pronounced both ways. That was considered disinterested, altruistic love that was given undeservedly, unmerited, and unachieved. Now, we've got to keep holding on to that as the highest love, as the divine love. And I think the Greeks even called it divine love. They didn't have our idea of Jesus or God, but they still knew there was a love that was perfect, that didn't depend on the worthiness of the object, but was givenness irrespective of whether that deserves to be given to. Pure givenness for its own sake.
Givenness, love that is given undeservedly, unmerited, and unachieved. Love that doesn't depend on the worthiness of the object. Pure givenness for its own sake. To give without expecting anything in return, that's agape. I don't think we see a whole lot of that in our world. Our world is all about transactions, added value, leverage, growth, and development. Not just in terms of economics, but in relationships of all kinds. My first winter in Saskatoon, I wanted to be a good neighbor, and so when I went out to shovel my sidewalk for the first time, I just kept on going and shoveled my neighbor's sidewalk as well. Just doing my good deed for the day. It felt nice. What a good prairie boy am I. But the next time it snowed, that neighbor then shoveled our sidewalk. So then I felt like I had to do it for them again the next time. And then they shoveled ours, and back and forth we go for 9 years. What started as pure kindness has become a sort of obligation. No one's keeping score, and of course it is still kindness. It's appreciated on both sides. But underneath there is this tinge of, I have to be a good neighbor. I need to prove my value to them. I can't let them give to us more than we give to them. I expect you have similar experiences. It's tough to find any relationship that exists outside of that kind of expectation of reciprocity. Quid pro quo, you might say. That's in business for sure, and politics. It's also on teams. I'm valued for my contribution to the greater good. It's in friendships. Nobody wants to be in friendships that are unbalanced. We expect and we invest in those relationships that give us some kind of payoff in return. Even in our families, even the healthiest ones, there's some level of expectation of conformity, of enforcing certain norms and behaviors, of fairness, keeping the peace maybe, making mom and dad proud, helping each other to move, whatever it is. There are few relationships that don't include some element of that back and forth, give and take, reciprocity, expectations that we will both be giving and taking for mutual benefit. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing on its own. Mutuality is essential in healthy relationships. Taking turns shoveling each other's sidewalks is a gift to both of us. Equality, reciprocity, good boundaries, healthy exchange, that is the best of Canadian society. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with that. What I am saying is that that is not agape love. And we all need agape love. The dilemma with that transactional approach is that eventually I will not measure up. I'm not always going to be a good neighbor. And then, what am I? We have all kinds of judgy words for those who take more than they give. A mooch, freeloader, a sponge, a drag on the system. There's a whole lot of judgment, shame there. Many of us are heavily invested in making sure that we never end up with more red than black in our personal ledger. I've seen that struggle as one of the hardest parts of aging for many people. As physical and mental health decline, if my needs outpace my ability to contribute, and that day will come for all of us, when I simply can't provide and serve like I used to, what then? What good am I? What I have to offer becomes what I think I am worth. Some days, at any age, that is nothing. I have less than some zero contributions. I've felt that at many stages of life already, in minimum wage retail jobs, as a student supported by a hardworking spouse, as a bad friend, unable to keep up my end of a friendship because of the demands of work and family, as a pastor, unable to be with and support people who need me, who I want to need me during a pandemic. When relationships are tied to some expectation of give and take, even if it's only my own expectations for myself, then my value gets tied up in how well I can meet those expectations. What I have to give becomes what I think I am worth. And the human condition is that I can never give enough. What I have to offer can never measure up to how much I need. I've always got more red in my ledger. I can never earn your approval, not as much as I depend on it. Without experiencing agape, I'm never enough. I think that's what the Apostle Paul is getting at in that most famous chapter on agape love, 1 Corinthians 13. You've heard it before. If I perform so well, if I have the voice of an angel, the wisdom of a guru, the faith to move mountains, if I make all kinds of sacrifices to serve others, but if I don't have love, I am nothing. I've always read that as a commentary on motivation, on how showing love to others is the most important thing. I mean, I can and do all of these things, these wonderful things, but if I don't have love while I'm doing them, if I don't do them from a place of love, then it's all meaningless. But as I was reading it again this week, something flipped it around for me, and maybe this is obvious to everyone else. But what if Paul is talking not about giving love, but about receiving love, accepting love? The phrase is, if I don't have love, to hold it, to possess it for myself. If I don't have love within me, then I am just noise. I will think that I'm nothing. I will feel like nothing. All of my service does nothing for me. I gain nothing. Because I can't earn love. I can only receive it. Before we love others, before we can perform for them and serve them, maybe Paul is saying that I have to accept that kind of love within myself first. And so when he says, love is patient, love is kind, that's how agape love treats me. Love is not keeping score against me. Love is not offended by my shortcomings. Love actually sees the truth. It rejoices in the truth of who I am. Agape puts up with all of me, believes in all of me, finds hope in me, supports and uplifts all of me. For sure, Paul wants us to show that kind of love to others, but we can't do that until we first experience love, hold it, have love within ourselves. We have to start there. We need to see ourselves in light of that agape love first. As Paul says, we only see ourselves dimly, like in a clouded mirror, but that's a distortion. And maturity, growing up, is the journey of learning to know and embrace myself fully, even as I am already fully known in the givenness of God. Some more from Richard Rohr.
I more and more believe that holiness, virtue in general, is passed on not by as much by the teacher method. I'm not saying the didactic style doesn't communicate, but much more by resonance, by seeing it, by having it mirrored and admired in me. You did a good thing, Billy, that you cared about that little girl. We need good behavior mirrored for us. And I think that's what good parents do. It's only been, Winnicott and other psychologists of the last 50 years who've unpackaged this whole thing of mirroring. How much the self is created by seeing itself admired or rejected in other people's eyes. That the way we look at one another matters. Mm-hmm. God seems to be the perfect, ultimate mirror. And what I mean by a mirror is that which receives everything just as it is, without distortion, without correction, without adjustment. And that's what we're all waiting for, isn't it? Someone who can know everything about me and still receive me. A mirror receives. It doesn't distort, or it's not a mirror.
In an ideal setting, when an infant looks up at their parent, they see themselves reflected in that parent. That's the research by a child psychologist that Roar was talking about. When the baby looks at her mother, ideally she sees that she is safe and calm and cared for and accepted. The mother is reflecting back to her, "You're okay. You've got this. You're doing this living thing so well." And of course, that's already true, but the infant doesn't know it until they see it reflected in the face of the parent. And the mirroring matters. The infant becomes what they see reflected in the faces around them, for better and for worse, unfortunately. That reality gets more complex as we grow, but that kind of mirroring interaction remains the core of human identity. We judge how we are doing based on what others reflect back to us. And so many of our mirrors are distorted by judgment and insecurity, those transactional patterns. That is the human condition. We are a living funhouse of distorted mirrors, all bent out of shape, trying to adjust our own images, and in the process warping the reflections that we offer back to others as well. As Richard said, the pure mirror is God. And church can be the place where we get that experience of true reflection, the transparent affirmation of agape love. Church is the place where we can be infants looking into the face of our mothering God, the place where God gives herself to us and reflects back the truth about us. You are safe, you are cared for, and you are doing so well. I've experienced that in this community. I hope that you have too. At least a glimpse, the echoing refrain that you are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. We can't hear that often enough. And no, that's not entirely unique to church. We can and do experience that kind of mirroring in our families and friendships, in children, in pets, in art and stories and music, in nature. Those mirrors are everywhere when we look for them. But so many of those things are layered with the dark glasses of other kinds of love, especially trying to earn acceptance and prove our worth to the other. Church can be one place where we are intentional about taking those layers off, stripping them away, making the mirror of God, God's love, clear and explicit. Church is where we practice agape, practice being the operative word. Because for sure, we will bring our judgments and comparisons in here as well, of others, especially of ourselves. We will use church for self-improvement, for recruiting, for conflict resolution. We criticize, we break things down in order to build them up, with the goal, as we say in our vision statement, of bringing out the best in each other and our world. And that's fine. We do want to bring out the best in each other and ourselves. But that's not the best we can do. That's not the greatest gift we have to offer. Once more from Richard Rohr.
Now, I'm convicting the church when I say that, because we stopped giving our unique and privileged and much broader access point, where you know things by participation, where you know things not by observation, not by speculation, not by analysis, but frankly by communion. And stay with me, you can't get this quickly. You know it, as the Franciscan tradition said, love must precede knowledge. You only know things that you first of all surrender to. You meet them not with a critical eye, not with the subject-object way of knowing, objectifying it, but subject to subject, where I know it by admiring it, where I know it by recognizing, if I dare say, the 10% that is good and right and beautiful, before I concentrate on the 90% that I disagree with, you know. And you can almost always do that if you're humble.
I'd say that's our aim in this church, to meet each other subject to subject, not leading with criticism, but with affirmation, respect. You are doing your best. Your presence with us is gift enough. We don't do that all the time, for sure. But come on, 10%? I love that he sets the bar so low. Surely I can find 10% that is good and right and beautiful in any one of you. Loving that 10%, starting with that assumption of affirmation and goodness, reflecting that part back. That's what church is all about. We can't solve your problems. We can't answer your prayers. We will disappoint you. We will sometimes offer judgment and advice instead of acceptance. This place is still a fun house of mirrors sometimes. But we can do 10%. Let's shoot for the stars. Let's get it up to a full 33 and a third. Just maybe reflecting that 10% can make all the difference. When we lead with that kind of mirroring love, when we allow ourselves to receive that gift from others, that is the path to knowing and being known wholly. So, when it is safe, when you are comfortable doing so, please come and join us. It's awfully hard to know and to be known through the Zoom screens that distort us. It's too easy to hide, turn off that camera or put on a filter or just find some way to put forward the best version of ourselves. And of course, we do that in person as well in various ways. But if you can, when you put aside those defenses, those filters for even a moment, I am confident that you will be met with the love of God. So here's to new beginnings, and may you be imprinted with that image of yourself reflected in the eyes of your mothering God. A well-worn poem from Jan Richardson. Beloved is where we begin. If you would enter into the wilderness, do not begin without a blessing. Do not leave without hearing who you are, beloved, named by the one who has traveled this path before you. Do not go without letting it echo in your ears, and if you find it is hard to let it into your heart, do not despair. That is what this journey is for. I cannot promise you this blessing will free you from danger, from fear, from hunger or thirst, from the scorching of sun or the fall of the night. But I can tell you that on this path there will be help. I can tell you that on this way there will be rest. I can tell you that you will know the strange graces that come to our aid only on a road such as this, that fly to meet us bearing comfort and strength, that come alongside us for no other cause than to lean themselves towards our ear and with their curious insistence whisper our name. Beloved, beloved, beloved. Come, my friends, come and see.